impact aging, with a strong focus and diversity in inclusion in biomedical research. And lastly, we have Matt Cook, a territory manager at Edwards Life Science, who enhances patient care through AI technology in critical care division. So without further ado, let's warmly welcome our panelists and look forward to an enriching discussion on sustainability, robotics, and AI in healthcare. And welcome all of you, and thank you for being here. So, as we start, we should hear about each panelist's high school days, giving us a glimpse into the early stage of their journey. We'll start off with Dr. Goodman. Can you share a bit of your childhood and how your early interest leads you to a pediatric surgeon?
Sure. I'm originally from rural Oregon, so I grew up on a small farm outside of Portland, and I thought I would be a veterinarian. So I then thought I would be an environmental engineer and went into college thinking I would do that. I changed course after Calculus 3 did not go well in my first semester, so I wasn't prepared for that. And I ended up studying anthropology and being in the Peace Corps. So I lived in Mongolia and was an English teacher, and it was there that I decided I would go back to what I'd originally been interested in, STEM, and try to marry that with helping people. So I thought I would be a veterinarian and improve the health of the herds that were sustaining the communities that I was educating, not so effectively in English, in far western Mongolia. So I went back into school again. I did my pre-medical work in Arizona, and then I decided to go into medical school instead of veterinary school. So I thought I would be a family practice doctor, and eventually discovered I loved operating and having an immediate effect and being able to help people out in a very, very concrete way. And I love taking care of kids. I didn't know that I was going to be a pediatric surgeon when I started. I thought I would take care of adults and do mostly trauma care, but kids recover so well, and they didn't do anything to cause the injuries or illnesses that they have. They haven't smoked or drank or done any of those things that adults have often done when they end up in the hospital. And it's just been a very rewarding choice for me. So very long, circuitous path.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Goodman. And now for Dr. Hill, we'd love to hear about your roots in Birmingham and your high school experience. And could you tell us about your transition from veterinary interest as well into focusing on nutrition and aging?
So I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, and my dream job was to be a veterinarian. So I started working for a local vet in 12th grade, actually. And what got me really interested is that I was waiting on the Siberian Husky to have puppies. And we waited for like a couple of days, and then the doctors came to me and said, hey, can you call your mom and tell her I'll drop you off? I need your help. And so I said, this is it. I'm going to be a vet. I'm going to school to do this. And that is not what I ended up doing. And so I went to Tuskegee University because they have a veterinarian program. But during that time, I was really interested in how animals could get sick at the vet, but more so for like cardiovascular disease or not diabetes, but insulin resistance or so. And so what could contribute to that was nutrition at the same time. And so instead of going to veterinary medicine, I decided to do a master's in animal science as well, but that really focused on avian immunology. And so my focus during my master's was how does high-fat diet induce cardiovascular disease using the turkey model. And so from there, somehow I was applying to UIC, got my applications mixed up. There was some health risk, like my grandmother was sick. And so I stopped focusing on grad school, and I ended up applying to SIU, Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, but I was stationed in Springfield. And so I walked into a lab of a PI that was a renowned scientist. I had never heard of him before. And he said, we do aging. And I was like, what does that mean? What we look like? Gray hair, wrinkles? No, biological aging. So before all of that starts to show on the outside, there are these changes in biological processes. And so my graduate work focused on understanding that from a nutrition perspective. And so after that, I did a postdoc at Pennington Biomedical Research Center, which is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And then from there, seeing I was never living.
The path that leads you to a career where you now merge AI into technology with patient cares.
Yeah, so I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. No, I'm just kidding. So my path is quite different probably than everyone else here. I work more on the business side and the sales side within a healthcare and life science company. But my path was a little different. It wasn't always clear to me what I wanted to do. So when I was in high school, I was very focused on water polo and swimming, and I played piano. And I tried to do well in school, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to the University of Arizona, and I was working as a lifeguard, both at home in the summer and at the recreation center. So I was spending a lot of time in learning basic life support. And as I was kind of trying to network and figure out what I should do for work, I talked with a family friend who had a lot of extensive knowledge and experience in different fields. And he was asking me, what do you like to do? And I said, well, in my current role and on the beach lifeguarding, I love taking care of patients when we have medical calls. It's really fascinating to me. But I also love working with people. And so he told me, well, have you considered maybe a sales type role where you get the opportunity to work with professionals in the healthcare space? You can, improve patient care through different technologies, but you also can use your communication skills that you're developing in the part of the business that you like or life that you like. So that's kind of, once I learned a little bit more about that, I actually switched from a business major to a healthcare major and continued kind of on that path. And then I was very fortunate out of school to get hired at Edwards Life Sciences, where I've kind of climbed within their organization in different sales roles.
Thank you, Matt, for sharing. Each story is really unique and everyone has their own story, but I'm sure everyone here can find elements of their own aspiration in what you have shared together. And now I'd like to dive into a bit deeper into each of your specific areas of expertise. Which I believe will be very valuable especially for the student who joins us today, trying to understand the future of healthcare. And very importantly, feel free to jump in after each responses on the question for each one. And we're going to start with Dr. Goodman again. Your expertise in pediatric general and thoracic surgery places you at the forefront of medical innovations. Considering the advancement in minimally invasive and robotic surgery, could you share how these technologies are shaping our future of pediatric surgery, especially in terms of promoting sustainable medical practices?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There's so many different ways
to maintain the ethical reason of using these animals for greater good.
Okay, thank you. As we shift gears a bit, as we approach to wrap up, I'm curious to hear from each of you on a few more topics that could be really helpful for each of the students who's listening to us. So the first question will be, what skill or habits do you believe has been most crucial for your success in health, life science, and technology?
It's a skill?
Skills or habits, yeah.
Learn time management, like right now, if you can. So as you start to develop within your careers, you're going to take on more activities. And so you have to learn to prioritize. And also you have to learn to make sure you get sleep while you're doing that prioritizing and doing everything. So time management is very important.
So for me, I think communication has been very important in my role. Not just practicing public speaking and asking open-ended questions and learning from others, but actually the curiosity to learn and understand someone's perspective and their role, what they're doing, or the subject they're an expert matter in. So I'd say improving communication has been very important for me, as well as always maintaining a deep sense of curiosity.
I would just add to those, having a sense of forgiveness for yourself and allowing yourself to not be perfect at everything. You don't know today where you're going to be in 10 years. You might have a plan, but you won't be perfect at everything. You will do your best, but give yourself that grace that you still need to spend time with your friends. You still need to do things you enjoy. Do the best you can, but know that there are many paths towards the future that you will have, and you don't know quite which one you'll be on, and that's okay. Just give yourself that space and forgiveness.
Okay, thank you for the advice. And another important thing I think everyone would want to know is, in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge or pivotal moments or projects in your career, your path, and what can students learn from your experience?
For me, it was moving out of Alabama, taking a risk, right? Going somewhere where I've never been before, meeting people that I've never met before, in a completely new environment. So for me, I've stood on that. Every new journey or a new opportunity has been in a place that is not familiar. And so for me, that gives me the motivation to compete against myself, right? Taking that internal risk and saying it's going to be okay. So learn to take the risk. We never know what's going to happen, but go in it with a positive view, what can this teach me instead of I'm just scared out all around. So take the risk, be your own motivation.
To build on that, I would say a challenge that I faced in my career that really opened my eyes was there was a role that I wanted within my company, and I was told I didn't have enough experience for it. I thought I was next in line, and they told me, you don't have the experience for this. So that was really surprising to me at the time when that happened. And what that really taught me was you need to be asking along the way, what can I be doing? Am I in the position for this? Just find out what you need to do. But what that also taught me is I ended up leaving in order to get the experience that the company felt that I needed, and then they actually brought me back. So don't be afraid to go take a risk, to try something new, and ask questions along the way just to make sure that you're positioning yourself for success.
I would add that, again, you don't know where you're going to end up or what pathway you're going to follow. I mentioned earlier I was in the Peace Corps after college, serving as an English teacher in Mongolia. When I decided to go back to school in Arizona, University of Arizona.
Go Cats.
I was a non-traditional student, right? I hadn't taken all the biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, and physics courses that I needed to get into medical school. So in reading the stack of books I got about how to get into medical school, I read that I had to take those courses, and I found them interesting. I found something very interesting about each one, and what I did was just go and spend time with the professors. I found something interesting, something I wanted to learn more about, and just took that extra time to attend office hours and make sure I understood everything really well. And it, I think, takes humility to say you don't know, right? And to know that first you're going to be bad at something before you're good at it, right? It's like learning a second language, learning any of these skills, that first you have to try. And it's not going to come out perfect. It might come out sounding really weird, actually, and that's okay. But just keep trying and keep going back and putting yourself out there.
Okay, thank you. I know that you have already introduced books that students can read, but could all of you recommend one essential readings for the student interested in your field and sharing like a brief advice for their journeys? I think that would be very helpful for them.
I'll share one book that will be probably a surprise to many people here, but I work in sales, so I'm going to suggest a sales book that taught me a lot about mentality. It's called The Little Red Book of Sales, but it applies to so much more. It applies to always working hard, positioning yourself in areas where you're going to meet new people and be able to connect. So it's more than just a sales book. It's actually a book that will teach you a lot about selling yourself and putting yourself in the right position to achieve what you want to do in life.
I would recommend one of the ones I showed, which is called Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese. And it's been many years since I read it. I was given that book actually as a gift by a public health professor when I was in medical school. But it's a novel that takes place in East Africa and deals with some of the ethical issues in medicine and surgery. So I recommend reading it. It's well written.
This is not actually a book, but this is a journal article. It's called The Hallmarks of Aging. And so what that piece or what that article does is helps you understand how do we get to these chronic diseases. And many of you are interested in going to medical school. And so while you're in medical school or while you're getting ready to go get a PhD in research, you're learning those processes right now in your biology courses or your scientific courses. So I think reading that right now will really give you some insight into where you could end up in gerontology and not just think of it as being a geriatrician. Gerontology is so much more than clinical practices and just working with the older population, which I do love. But just reading the hallmarks of aging will give you that insight.
Okay, thank you. As we move towards the end of the discussion, I'd like to open the floor to the students. If you have any questions for the panelists, now would be a great time to ask, and we will want to make sure that you leave today with insights and knowledge as possible. So please don't hesitate to speak up, and please refer to the panelists of your questions.
Some really amazing life experience, but going back to a lot of today, which I wrestle with the efficacy of, we're building something that is supposed to be near perfect. And as we continue to strive to ourselves become perfect and we learn all these failures along the way, AI does the same thing. We're programming to become so perfect. And you talk about the diet, it's like, man, I don't use AI to talk about my diet. Point to, that's pretty cool. But on the surgery side, like, why wouldn't we eventually get to a spot where we created something so perfect? As you mentioned, Dr. Newman, like, you don't ever see that surgeons being replaced, which I think, again, I'm just curious, why wouldn't we get to that spot eventually?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a good question. And I think that there is the potential in static images for AI to replace physicians. For example, in reading x-rays, in reading mammograms, CAT scans, AI is showing really good promise in interpreting what's there. But I think what it can't do is have the judgment and the perspective of the whole patient that's required. That's like, maybe that would be one of that's I don't trust that to take it into account. Because I don't think that, it just, there's not that feels like maybe human judgment is always going to be required.
Okay, thank you for the question. Thank you for the excellent answer. We are going to end the question portion now, and unfortunately, we must end this section. Thank you all for joining us today in
this enriching discussion. And let's have a special thanks to our panelists for sharing their expertise and experience with us today. Let's give them a big round of applause. What we hope today is you leave today with inspired and informed. And thank you once more. We are looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.